Good day. This is Frank Borelli from Officer.com. I want to talk to you today about us versus them. I'm not talking about cops versus citizens. I'm talking about police officers versus a group that is supposed to support and protect our children as well as educate them. I'm talking about public school systems. This doesn't apply obviously to all public school systems. It's probably just the responsibility of a few key administrators. But I don't understand some things that have happened. I don't understand why a school's principal would want to run away. This kid still shows up for school. They ran away from a bad home situation. They're living with friends. They're still showing up for school. Obviously, the parents call the police to report the kid as a runaway. The kid's still going to school. The police go to the school and say, hey, look, we don't want to interrupt the child's school day. At the end of the school day, call him down to the office. We'll meet him here, and we'll take it from there. And instead of doing that, either the principal, counselor, somebody in the school warns this child that the police are going to come and be ready to pick him up, so the child runs further. Several months go by, and this child's finally found out of state living in horrible conditions. Why would anybody in the school do that? Why would a superintendent of schools turn down a proposal from a local sheriff to put a school resource officer in every school of the county, not just high schools and middle schools? I'm talking about every school in the county. The sheriff gets a grant from the Department of Justice to fund it. It's not going to cost the county a single cent. It's not going to cost the school system a penny. But the superintendent of schools doesn't want it. And the argument given is that the fact that the deputies would answer to the sheriff and not the principal in every school. Who cares? Why wouldn't we put a deputy, uniformed deputy, in every school? Why would we not want that? Why would a school principal actually call and ask a sheriff's deputy not to come to school in a uniform wearing a gun anymore to pick up his daughter? This just happened recently out in Arizona. Some parents complained about a uniformed police officer coming to school to pick up his child, his daughter, and the principal calls the police officer and says, hey, do me a favor. Don't wear your uniform anymore. Don't carry a gun to school. What are we thinking? Why doesn't the principal tell the parents, it's a police officer? Why, or sheriff's deputy, why would you be bothered by that? Do we get people who hate the police so much or don't trust the police so much or dislike the police so much that we'd rather have our children at risk than have a police officer around? I just don't get it. But those are all examples of schools working against police officers, against law enforcement officials. So I'm going to give you one more. How about this one? Why would a school punish a student for answering a call for help from a fellow student who's done something stupid, got drunk at a party, but is intelligent enough to know they shouldn't drive home, so they call and ask a friend for help. Come give me a ride. The school system, and it amazes me that the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers agree with this, is actually punishing the helpful student because they violated the zero tolerance policy by going and giving their friend a ride. Now I get, hey, look, they should have told, the person drunk should have called an adult. Well, children don't do that. And no matter how much we think children in high school are grown up, they're still children. They're still immature to some extent. So they're not going to call and say, hey, mom, dad, whatever, I'm drunk, I did something stupid, come get me. They're still going to avoid getting in trouble, so they call a friend. The friend, I guess if they are willing to accept being a quote-unquote snitch or a rat or whatever, they might tell some parents, and then you still get the kid a ride home, and everybody gets in trouble. Why are we punishing a girl? Why is the Boston school system punishing a girl for going and giving a friend a ride home? Why aren't we holding this up as maybe not model behavior, but better behavior, which is a better option? What are we teaching students today? Are we, those select few that actually do these things, demonstrating that police officers and sheriff's deputies are undesirable, that we don't want them around, that the school knows better than anybody else what's best for our children? Every year my son brings home his student discipline handbook, and one of the rules is that fighting is unacceptable at any time for any reason. We have a zero tolerance policy that has 5-year-old kids being punished because they eat their pastry in the shape of a handgun, or they draw a picture, or they point a finger on a bus. I don't get it. Zero tolerance was a good concept, but I think now, I don't know if it's because it's tied to federal funding, I don't know if it's because people are worried about politics and political correctness or just covering themselves from a liability perspective. I don't get why they've gone to such extremes in our school system, and those extremes sometimes actually make them work counter to public safety officials. It makes no sense to me. It's my rant for the day. It's my pet peeve. I don't get it. For what it's worth, my son brings home his student discipline handbook, and on that rule, I changed the period to a comma, and I put except in self-defense. I sign it, he signs it, we send it back to the school. I've been called into the school once or twice, different principals wanting to know why I changed it. My son won't be a victim. None of my children will. I had the same local ladies, but I got 4 of them, and they're all the same way. I don't believe that violence is the answer. I don't believe that going out and getting drunk at a party for a high school kid is an answer. I don't believe that they're acceptable options. Sometimes never, sometimes there are. If a kid's being bullied, I'd really rather have them fight back than commit suicide. I'd really rather have somebody else defend the kid who's being bullied rather than the kid being bullied to commit suicide. I think we're so busy teaching our children this Garden of Eden idealistic way of life that we forget that life is not in the Garden of Eden. It's not idealistic. And we're not teaching them how to deal in a mature, adult, reasonable fashion with the challenges that they're going to have to face that sometimes might be violent. And the answer to that is justifiably fight back. I applaud the high school child who went and gave a friend a ride rather than letting that friend stay someplace drunk and not making good decisions, try to drive home themselves. I applaud the sheriff who wanted to put a deputy in every school. It's a shame the school board wouldn't allow it. I applaud the deputies who wanted to secure a runaway child, not return her home necessarily, but figure out what the situation was, work with social services to try to improve the situation, correct the situation, put her in a different situation. I don't applaud the principal who warned her, or counselor, whoever it was, that let her run away further and cost her 3 months of miserable life. I don't applaud the school system that punishes a high school student for being healthy. I don't applaud a principal who asks a police officer not to come to school in uniform because it disturbs other parents. What are we thinking? We've got to get past this. It's unacceptable. We can't have this us versus them going on, whether it's a mentality or not. It can't happen. We have to work together for the benefit of our children. What do you want? Comments are accepted below. Stay safe.